They fake the handoff to him. Roll out, throws, he's got Holmes open. Sanchez looks left. He's got his man, and they are looking throw. Now in trouble, throws it in. What a catch!
And Rex Ryan knows that's it.
That was surely it. That was the final nail in the current coffin of the New York Jets football franchise. My name is Greg DePalma, and I am a New York Jets fan. I sound like I'm in AA or something. To prove my allegiance is true and faithful, here are some photos of me as a minor. My Lord. There's my Richard Todd Jet jersey with my grandparents. And those are my kin. The one wearing the Dolphins sweatshirt is my biological brother. Naturally, we're brothers, so we can't like the same team. Okay. So there's the proof. You got it, that I was a Jet fan all the way back to my childhood. That was, that's got to be over 50 years old, those photos.
Wow, that looks sharp.
Okay, now, I think what would be a good idea is I want to go back to the video. Let's see. Okay. So this is how long it's been for us fans, because even I wasn't. I mean, the ironic thing is I was alive, but not very old, just several months. So it doesn't count. And most diehard Jet fans today do not have any memory whatsoever of the Super Bowl. All we have memories of are these types of clips. That's all we have. And yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but the only thing I could say about that is that we do have history. And I think that's important. And maybe it's a great way to start off the video is by talking about the importance of being positive.
Positively.
Because I know there's a lot of negativity going around between the media and the fans as far as the Jets franchise. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay, because you have to hit rock bottom. And I don't think we've hit rock bottom. Now, we might have hit rock bottom for this generation, but for a franchise, this is not rock bottom.
You know what rock bottom is.
Let's go through the clips here, because this one, you see Freeman scoring a touchdown on the Cincinnati Bengals there. Look at that high stepping. That was Freeman. We loved Freeman. Freeman was an awesome running back. We had some really good players back in the 80s. We really did. And unfortunately, we didn't have enough depth to build a championship team. But we had some really impact players, and Freeman was one of them. This was the 1982 strike-shortened season, by the way. And that Bengals team lost to the 49ers in the Super Bowl the previous year. Okay, so that's a good Bengals team. They just come off losing the Super Bowl. They go back to the playoffs in the shortened season. And the first team that they played, the New York Jets, at home, we beat them. That's our boy Lance Mel. Let's go to Lance first. That's our boy Lance Mel. And that came against the LA Raiders. The Raiders, we upset the Raiders that day. They were 8-1. And that team had 8 Hall of Famers on it. 8. That included head coach Tom Flores and owner Al Davis. Now, they had Hall of Famer Art Shell, but he did not play in the game. He was that was, I think, the first game he missed. He played all regular season, I believe, and then he missed this game. And that was the last game he ever played. That was it for Art Shell, Hall of Famer. And then there were other Super Bowl winning players on the team too, including the quarterback that just threw an interception, Jim Plunkett. That team had Jim Plunkett, all-pro edge rusher Lyle Alzado, who had over 100 career sacks. He was an all-pro, I believe, once. 1980 Defensive Player of the Year was Lester Hayes, a 4-time all-pro cornerback. Boy, Lester was, was he fun. Just marketing Lester and the Raiders back then was just so cool, with John Facenda narrating. Those were, of course, the heydays of the Raiders organization, and we beat them.
Lester Hayes' interception was the final blow.
Super Sunday, what a day. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. It's like a dream come true.
The autumn wind is a pipe.
It's unbelievable. Yes, we're going to win. We are going to win, no question.
And the other Hall of Fame players in that game that we beat, Marcus Allen, Cliff Branch, Ted Hendricks, Howie Long, and punter Ray Guy, including those Super Bowl winning players I mentioned. And to tell you how talented that Raider team was, after they lost this game, so they go 8-1, they lose to us in this game. I think this was the only game they played in the playoffs that year. And then they come back the next year, win the Super Bowl. Matter of fact, they destroyed the Washington Redskins in the 1983 Super Bowl. So those are the first 2 clips you see here. 1982, beat the defending AFC champion Bengals, then go to LA, beat the Raiders, who would go on to win the Super Bowl the next year with many of the players I mentioned. Okay, I can't fast forward just yet, because what you're not seeing is what happened after the Raider game, because I'm not going to be like a lot of other channels that cover the Jets, that if they were in this situation, I think they would absolutely love showing you highlights and clips. Now, I'll show you a couple, but they would probably spend more time on the losses than the wins. But that's not what we're going to do here on this channel. Anyway, we played the Dolphins. This was going to be our time. We were the better team, the faster team. We had just beaten these 2 really big-time franchises. And now we're playing a Miami Dolphin team that was not a very good team that year. We did them the favor by knocking off the Bengals and the Raiders. And then we go to Miami. I mean, their quarterback was David Woodley. And he was so good that the following offseason, Dan Marino was drafted. And the rest is history. Their best wide receiver that year was Jimmy Cephalo. But he was actually their number 1 receiver that year. And again, it just shows you that not only it was pre-Marino, but pre-Mark Clayton, Mark Duper. This shows you what a great coach Don Shula was. And right there, that was a big enough difference in itself. Now, I think Joe Walton did a good job coaching the Jets during the 80s. A good job. But he was no Don Shula. And that's been the problem with our franchise forever. It's been, and look, a lot of other teams, a lot of other franchises and fan bases deal with the same thing we do. We're not alone. There's a select few that have the great long winning histories, that have the Hall of Fame coaches and Hall of Fame quarterbacks. We just were never that fortunate. And And we had the talent that if we had that type of quarterback or coach, man, we could have had a lot of winning, especially in the 80s. But Don Shula beat us that day. They had the Killer Bees defense. They had the Blackwood brothers, Bob Brzezinski. And on top of that, it rained. I mean, it rained. It wouldn't stop, which was always going to be the benefit of the slower team. I mean, this was one ugly game. And it's no wonder they tapped at the Mud Bowl, literally and figuratively. There were 8 interceptions in the game. They, of course, the infamous pick 6 by A.J. Dewey. Do you know that A.J. Dewey had 3 career regular season interceptions? 3 in his entire career in the regular season. You know what he ended up with in the championship game? 3. And he threw on the pick 6 for show. The Dolphins would go on to the Super Bowl, and that was the only joy left that season, if you were a Jet fan, was being able to sit back, watch the Super Bowl, and watch the Washington Redskins kick the Dolphins' ass. It was just further proof. You see, it should have been us. We were the better team. And you know what was interesting, too, is that Redskin team who won the Super Bowl in 82, they come back in 83. You know what happened to them? They went back to the Super Bowl, and they lost to the Raiders, who kicked their ass. Everything comes around, I guess. All right, so Lance Mel, one of the best inside linebackers the Jets have ever had. I can't say the same for Kevin MacArthur, but he had his moment here. So Kevin MacArthur, no, can't get that on there right. Let's just leave it there. Kevin MacArthur, one of 3 turnovers in this playoff game. So this was the 86 season. So we're going to fast forward a few years. So this is 86. And keep in mind, when we lost that Dolphin championship game, that was Richard Todd. He was the quarterback. And I mean, as a fan, one of the things you remember about Richard Todd is that he threw a lot of interceptions, but he was also one of the better passers in franchise history. He just was. It's really unbelievable when you take a look at the difference between the way the game was back then and the way the game is now, the way the offenses were run. Yeah, it was more of a running game, but it was just the beginning of because, look, when Joe Namath won the Super Bowl, one of the great things about it was the AFL versus the NFL, and the AFL was a pass-happy league. That's all they did. It was a big marketing tool for them. And then when the Jets won the Super Bowl, they didn't win because Joe Namath threw for 400 yards against the Colts, but still, that was new to the end to football, was the passing game. And then in the late 70s and early 80s, all of a sudden you start getting the really great talent at quarterback never seen before. So interceptions were rampant back then, especially when Richard Todd was playing. And the biggest interception, well, the thing about Richard is he had 2 big playoff games. Or I should say he was in several playoff games, but he was in 2 that were pretty significant for a Jet fan like myself growing up. And one of them was at home because it was a home playoff game at Shea Stadium. And that was rare. And we were supposed to win that game because we were the home team. We were playing the Buffalo Bills, and they weren't that great. And we get behind early, but we come back, and Richard Todd is looking like John Elway, and he's making a comeback, and the place is rocking, and it's like the most fun ever. And then Richard Todd throws the interception basically in the end zone with seconds left in the game. It was like we knew we were going to win the game. This was it. This was us. And then we lost. And that was the very first painful defeat I ever remember as a Jet fan. That was it. That was number one of many. Richard Todd, Buffalo Bills, playoff game, interception.
Oh, you poor baby.
Now, speaking of interceptions, okay, so this is the 1986 season. Again, we had the 3 turnovers, as I mentioned, in this game. That's won by MacArthur. Oh, this was some crazy season. This was the Jets have never had a season like this before. This was crazy. We started 10-1 back in 86. 10-1. I mean, we went to the playoffs the previous season, Ken O'Brien's second season. I think we were like 9-7. We lost the playoff game to Houston. I think it was Houston. And then we come back and then we just get off to a great start. 10-1, year 3, Ken O'Brien. Man, everything was looking great. But then at 10-1, we would lose 5 straight games. And we lost those 5 games by a 36-12 margin. But yet we still made the playoffs. So we go to the playoffs 10-6. We get this home game against the Chiefs, and they weren't like a top-rated team or anything like that. So we had hope. And then we get the 3 turnovers, including this interception, and we won this game easy. So O'Brien, he's in his 3rd season. And I tell you what, I mentioned Todd. Ken O'Brien, if I had to compare him to Chad Pennington, because it's Namath, and then it's either O'Brien or Pennington. And I know a lot of fans probably go to Pennington, and maybe that's because he's fresher in their minds. And I get that. I completely get it. But I just believe Ken O'Brien was a better quarterback. And if Ken O'Brien had the talent around him, and both quarterbacks had the same talent around them, and you're asking for the peak of both quarterbacks, Ken O'Brien's the guy. And it was one of those situations where everybody remembers the draft drama of Marino slipping all the way to the end of the first round. And every quarterback known to man was taken early, except Dan. And O'Brien was one of them. And Jet fans were just dumbfounded. Who the hell is Ken O'Brien? And I remember that very vividly. Who is Ken O'Brien? Where did this? Because this wasn't this was the technology age was not there in the early 80s. Many of us, if you weren't playing big time football on television, had no idea who some of these players were. And Ken O'Brien came from just obscure small school. And it was like, of course, the Jets are going to take Ken O'Brien and let Dan Marino go. And so for the first couple of years, especially because Dan Marino as soon as he started playing, it was like the guy is just going to be awesome. You saw it in him. But yet Ken O'Brien showed you in year 2 that, okay, we have something. It's not Dan Marino, but we got something. And then it was that week 3 game that really was so satisfying. And I just can imagine how satisfying it was for Ken and his teammates to win that game against Marino. And they were down in the game. And it was really, I go back for my entire career as a Jet fan, my entire fandom. And I can't recall a better fourth quarter late drive touchdown that we had. Now, I don't know what that says as an organization, because you certainly wish you had those in the postseason. But the biggest memories we have as Jet fans in the postseason was the opposite, was getting beat when we're leading late in the fourth quarter. Those are those biggest memories. And there were some big plays in the playoffs, no question. But and that game wasn't a playoff game. It was just week 3. But that's how awesome that game was. Because it was Marino and O'Brien. And you know the New York media, obviously. That's why we're doing the channel. You know the New York media. You know, the Jets draft O'Brien, and Dan Marino goes to Miami, and they get Marino, we get O'Brien. And so this was so satisfying. One of the greatest games in team history. And they were down by 7 points with about a minute to go, and O'Brien led them down the field. It's like every pass went to Mickey Schuler, who still today, right now, today, is the greatest tight end in the history of the New York Jets. And it was Schuler for 10, Schuler for 8, Schuler for 15, Schuler for 8. And then they get to about, I forget where it was, 20-yard line, 15-yard line, something like that. And it's like the last play of the game. And it's like one of those situations where you have like this really tight window you could throw the ball if you have the right play call. So when it was completed for the score, it was the most amazing feeling that I recall back then. It was so great. And then we go to overtime and we won the coin toss, which was so important. None of these defenses were stopping anybody on this day. That's the thing. So we get the ball back and score the touchdown. We go to overtime, and here comes the coin flip. And we knew the coin flip meant everything. And we got the ball. And a couple of plays into overtime, I don't even know how many plays it was. O'Brien hits Wesley Walker, who scored the game-tying touchdown. He hits Wesley Walker in stride for whatever, 50, 60-yard touchdown, whatever it was. It was typical Ken O'Brien. He had a great deep arm. That's why O'Brien was better than Pennington, because Chad could do it, but he just didn't do it a lot. But Ken O'Brien could throw the deep ball, and he had a great connection with Wesley Walker. And, of course, had Al Toon. And that was the best 1-2 punch the organization has ever had. Al Toon, Wesley Walker, and again, you had Mickey Schuler at tight end. I'm telling you, that offense was good. Freeman McNeil in the backfield. Wow. So that was such a great win.
Marino wants his shot on the sideline. He knows that out in the trenches knocking it out. Doing a fine job of that.
Take to Hector. O'Brien going for it all. To Walker. Touchdown. Oh, my. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've seen one of the greatest games in NFL history. In overtime, 51-45, the Jets have beaten Miami.
And fast forward, because everything, again, we go on, we win 10. It was what? I forget how many games we had won in a row. 8 games, I think. So we are now in the midst of this long winning streak, and O'Brien gets banged up. He's got a shoulder injury. And then he was never the same the rest of the season. And we went to play the Miami Dolphins in the rematch of Monday Night Football, and they got their revenge, let me tell you. The Dolphins destroyed the Jets 45-3. And that started a 5-game losing streak, the one I mentioned. O'Brien started the season with a 23-8 ratio, TD to interception. Ended the season with a 2-12 ratio over the 5-game losing streak. So we go to the playoffs, and in this game here, and Joe Wall decides O'Brien, he's just physically, mentally, and a lot of it, I think, was mental too. I remember them talking back then about something was just off psychologically for Ken O'Brien that year. And again, I'm sure it was the shoulder, had everything to do with it. So Pat Ryan comes in this game. And again, Jet fans who have lived long enough know that Pat Ryan was the best backup quarterback. Number 2, or I should just say that, the best number 2 quarterback that the franchise has ever had. I'm not talking about for 1 year. I'm just talking about over longevity. He was with the Jets for 13 years and won 11 of 19 as a starter. That's all you can ask for. So Pat Ryan, who had played a little bit in the regular season. So he gets the start in this game, and he goes on to throw 3 touchdown passes. And then we get the turnovers. We win the game. We go to Cleveland. We're a big underdog. And we lead the Browns 20-10. And this is one of those situations where most Jet fans remember or have heard of this and have seen highlights if you're young. We led the game 20-10 with 4 minutes left on another Freeman McNeil touchdown run. I think that one was like 25 yards. And then the infamous worst poorly timed penalty in franchise history was Mark Gastineau when he hit Bernie Kosar and what would have been a 3rd and forever. It was about to be 3rd and like 25, and the Jets would wind up collapsing in that one in overtime, double overtime. And that was that.
That sucks.
I mean, nothing was more painful than that one, that time of my life.
Yeah, it sucks.
I mean, I remember, and I think it was even, I'm pretty sure it was on that Sunday morning, because I remember, because the Browns stick in my head. I remember going to church as a kid. I used to go to church all the time. I was really into that. I did everything, which you're supposed to do. Nice Catholic kid. And I went to church in the morning and I prayed for the Jets to win. Now, I learned over time, you're not supposed to really do that. You pray for other things. But, for your team to win, that was kind of silly, but I was a kid. And that's how much I wanted it. And it didn't happen. And to have the lead, to be that close, because also, I forgot to mention that Pat Ryan got hurt in the game. So Pat Ryan had a great opportunity, wins the first playoff game, starts the second game, gets hurt. And O'Brien comes in. Now, O'Brien didn't do anything, pro or con. He didn't really have to. The defense was playing good. Freeman McNeil was running, and we had the lead and should have won. And we were that close from going to the AFC Championship game. And it all went away. And the only thing I remember in a positive way about that was the same thing with the Dolphins in 82 was the following week came one of the biggest classic NFL moments ever called the drive. To see the Browns fans feel the same way we did a week earlier when we blew the lead and then they blew it, it kind of felt good. It did. I'm sorry, Browns fans out there, but it just did. So we move on. And let's fast forward now to, well, I don't have to fast forward. So here's the Testaverde to Keyshawn. And this is the Jacksonville playoff game. And this is all the way to 1998. So this is Bill Parcells. And we had a strong team that year. That was a good team. Curtis Martin, Keyshawn Johnson had big games. We'll talk more about Parcells later. And I have to pause it here because, unfortunately, after this one came, I just mentioned how the Cleveland Brown loss was up there as, or at least at the time, was the most painful defeat I've ever had. Well, 12 years later, and I was about 30, and it happened again. We led the Denver Broncos 10-0 in the third quarter and then ended up losing.
Oh, you poor baby.
So that was another gut-wrenching defeat, especially because we hadn't realized it then, but that was our shot with Bill Parcells. And especially the way things came about just a few years earlier when the franchise was in complete dire straits. I mean, you think things are tough now. Man, we were at rock bottom when Parcells took over the franchise.
That does sound like rock bottom.
Okay. Now, let's move on to some nicer things. Here's Richie Anderson getting the screen pass from Chad Pennington. That opened up the scoring against the Indianapolis Colts. Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts. This is 2002. So we fast forward about 4 years. We were only a 9-17 back then. Who is the best receiving threat out of the backfield for the New York Jets? Could be Richie Anderson. I might put Richie Anderson at number 1. I know Bruce Harper, who was, I think Bruce was the running back. He might have been the running back with Richard Todd back when they lost that infamous game I mentioned against the Bills in the playoffs. But Bruce Harper, he was a fan favorite. He was a little scat back tight. But I think Richie Anderson might be the best receiving threat we've ever had in the backfield. So we score a touchdown here, win the game 41-0. But you're not going to see anything else this season because the very next week, we got hammered by the eventual AFC champion Raiders, who would go on to the Super Bowl and get hammered by John Gruden and the Tampa Bay Bucks and Keyshawn. Okay. Let's move on. Oh, this is a good one. I mean, that was beautiful. It really was. That was one of the greatest plays in New York Jets playoff history. It just was. It was, or you could say, you might even say the best playoff pass in New York Jets playoff history. We could watch Richie one more time, but just check out the perfection of the throw. Beautiful. Anyway, we win that game against the Chargers. The very next week, we would go on and lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers as a big road dog. And typical Jets, we had a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter. That's right. A 7-point lead in the fourth quarter against Big Ben, who did it to us a couple of times. You know, a lot of people talk about, Tom Brady was a thorn in the Jets side. But you know who really was a thorn in the Jets side was not Tom Brady. It was Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, I said it.
Because Tom Brady, he was whatever, 90% win percentage in his career against the Jets, blah, 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 whatever. But those were not playoff games. No. The quarterback that killed our chances in the postseason was Ben Roethlisberger.
I hate that guy.
And he did it twice. He did it this season, and then he did it in the clips that we're going to see that you've already seen from the start. All right, so this one, after we lose that one to Pittsburgh, it's fast forward to 2009, and we go 9-7. This is the first year of Rex Ryan, and we won 5 of our last 6. Squeak into the postseason, and that's when we had not only a first-year head coach in Rex Ryan, but we had a rookie quarterback, Mark Sanchez. So we make the run late, we get to the playoffs, and we start against the Cincinnati Bengals. And we had played the Bengals the last game of the regular season and won that game. So we start up this one, and this is Sean Green. Oh, Sean Green, one of maybe the most underrated running back in franchise history. For a couple of years, for about 4 or 5 years, Sean Green was the man.
Yes. Yes, he was.
And it wasn't like he was a 1,500-yard type of player, but he was so awesome in a way because he was especially during Rex's tenure, those couple of years, man, he was the perfect Rex Ryan running back. Physical, tough, running, and speed. Man, he was really fun to watch. So they get the touchdown, and Sean, because after this, boom, look at that, baby. Let's watch that again before we get to look at that. All right, so you get Sean Green, and then boom, and he would go on and score a touchdown against the Chargers there. He had 263 yards in his first 2 games on the ground, and we upset the Chargers as big road dogs again. Okay. And then we're not going to move on here just for a second because unfortunately we did lose in the championship game to the Indianapolis Colts. And what was really tough about that one was we had the lead. Sound familiar? We had the lead 17-13 in the second half, but Sean Green was not available. He got hurt, and we were done.
Son of a bitch!
Because with Mark Sanchez as a rookie, we needed the balance. It wasn't like Mark played poorly, but we just did not have a running game. And, we didn't have, they had Peyton Manning. We didn't. And without the running game, because that was our style, especially that first year, we had to run the football. I mean, Brian Schottenheimer, he gets no respect. And I don't know how many times I got to keep reminding everybody about the job he did as an OC with a rookie quarterback. They get to the playoffs, and the ability to run the football better than anybody in the NFL with Sean Green and Thomas Jones. Once Sean went down in the second half, we were toast. And then the Colts would go on to lose to the Saints in the Super Bowl. So once again, I guess we had some joy payback as fans. Okay. The very next year, we get to play the Colts in the first round of the playoffs. And this is the game-winning playoff walkover against the Colts. You could see there 16-14. We win this one 17-16. Yeah, I know. Nick just got signed and he's not going to play for the Jets anymore, and that's unfortunate. But I trust the special teams coach. I trust the staff, that especially the special teams group. There's nothing to say negative at all about Chris Banjo and special teams. Nothing. And if he believed, they had the money. And so if he had probably more input than anybody else. And if he felt it was time to move on for whatever reason, kickoffs, age, money, I'm going to go with it. So Falk, this is why we part of the reason we always remember Nick Falk so well, because Nick Falk was a very, very good kicker for us. And might go down as, I know statistically speaking, the greatest kicker we've ever had. I mean, Pat Leahy might have something to say about that. He was the kicker back in the 70s and 80s. He was with us for a very long time. But yeah, Falk, I mean, it's too bad Falk wasn't with us for his entire career, but that's just not the NFL. So that's the field goal, the game winner. The very next year, we get revenge on the Colts. Oh, and there is the touchdown, Santonio Holmes in Foxborough. How awesome was that? To beat the 14-2 Patriots in Foxborough. Mark Sanchez had a good game, threw 3 touchdowns in the game. And this was one of our greatest moments. It really was. This win was one of the great wins in franchise history. To beat the 14-2 Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, to stick it to them in their building with Rex Ryan, year 2. We're going to win it this time. And it was just so great. LaDainian Tomlinson, keep in mind, replaced Thomas Jones. So again, Thomas Jones had pretty much had it that year prior. So we bring in LaDainian Tomlinson, and he gives a spark. And now it's with Tomlinson and Green. It's a great running back tandem. And Sanchez is in year 2, and we've still got the defense and Bart Scott. And we go ahead and we win this game, and it's on to Pittsburgh. Yep, there you go. Now, I showed highlights of this one for two reasons. One, because it was the last playoff game that the team has had, the franchise has had. And two, because may not realize this, but the team was down 24-0 in this game. And this is how resilient they were. Another Santonio Holmes touchdown. Now you get a Kotchery touchdown. And everything is set up. 3rd and 6. You see where the ball is. There was a minute and change left, something like that. We were out of timeouts, and this was it. If we stop them here, we're going to get the ball back, and we're going to be able to. We have a shot. We have a shot. We have legitimate time to go down the field and pull off the most miraculous comeback in the history of the NFL championship games. And so we needed to stop him. And Roethlisberger, even though he was our playoff nemesis, really was, he never had big games against us. Matter of fact, I don't know if this is the game, but I remember in one of the two playoff games, he had like no touchdowns and 2 picks, but they beat us. So here, this game might have been it. So here, he makes the play. He did what he always did against us.
I hate that guy.
Look at that. No other recourse, but I got to wait, and I got to wait for Holmes to get open, and he did. He puts it perfectly where it needs to be, and they crushed us.
Yes, they did.
And we were crushed. And that was it. And, yep, Rex is not happy. We were not happy. We were all just – Rex spoke for all of us. Slamming that down. It was not good. Especially because we did. It's so weird because you almost feel like, I could have just it was a nice season, but they were the better team. They blew us out. What else could we say? We'll get him next year. Mark's a young kid, whatever. We were the underdog anyway. We had to win 3 road games in a row. Okay, it is what it is. But no, they get back in the game, and they made us care again in the game. And then just when we had our last chance, we had gotten all the way back to 24-19. We needed one more stop, and we couldn't get it. So that was it. Our last playoff appearance was right there back in 2011. 2011. Where's that? There you go. 2011. That's how long it's been. You know what I miss more than anything? Because when I look back at those types of games, those losses, there's a certain fan base that just hasn't been old enough. If you think about it, let's see. Let's go back. It's 2011. So right now, we're going to be on 16 years. So let's say if we got 15 years now, last time you're in the playoffs. So you would have to be about 22 to 23 years old in order for you to kind of really remember and understand the game enough and really feel it. Be a fan during the time when we last were in the postseason and had our shot. So that means that there are a lot of fans out there who are now 8, 10, 15, 18, 20, who don't. They don't really have a whole lot of they don't have memories of the Jets in the postseason. And I get that. I really do. And I think there's a lot of that base of fans who are really, really frustrated and probably the most impatient. And one of the things that they don't that they're going to eventually learn is the joy of being relevant. And that was the thing that I miss the most. Is I really miss being a relevant fan for a playoff team, like a team that is perennial perennially considered playoff caliber. I really miss those days. I miss being respected by the league, by our colleagues that we work with, since I work in the industry, by the fans, and of course the media. That's what I miss more than anything. Instead, we're in this quagmire. We got fans overreacting to anytime something bad happens. Some of you guys out there let the media pile on with ridiculous videos about all sorts of stupid shit. And trust me, we're going to talk about it. There's going to be a lot of videos that I am going to be posting on this channel and sending out on social media. I don't care if it's a short or it's a 5 or 10 minute video, but there's so much content out there to ridicule and to highlight about how ridiculous the comments were, how wrong certain people are. And I'm really talking mostly about the national media. And I, in a way, I kind of consider like WFAN and the people who cover the Jets in New York like a national media base, because it's New York. And that's like, that's how the team is covered really the most. And that's how the team is bashed the most by that media base. And it's not just about, oh, you know what, I'm gonna nitpick and I'm gonna find little stuff here and there. No, it's not. I don't have to do much work to find the ridiculous content that's out there that is completely moronic, that doesn't make sense, that the only reason they're saying it is because they want to infuriate Jet fans and get them riled up and get clicks and all that stuff. And I'm sick of it. What I am is I am ready. And I'm also thinking that, because I've talked about doing this for a very long time. I know there are some viewers out there that have followed me for the years that I did videos and audio, going back 15 years or so. Remember early on, I was with Dan Leberfeld from Jets Confidential. I've known Dan for a very long time, and he does a great job with Jets Confidential. And one of the things that, when I look back at what I did when I was a radio broadcaster in South Florida, and I had the opportunity to go to Jet games against the Dolphins with credentials because of Dan. I was able to cover the team that way. I was able to go into the locker room, talk to coaches, talk to players, go to press conferences after games, go on the sidelines. I've got all sorts of photos I'll show you in the future and future videos about where I've been and what I've done, and just good memories more than anything. But Dan's the positive side of the media. Dan's critical, but Dan's, and he should be. We all should be. But Dan's not a phony critical, and there's an awful lot of those out there, an awful lot. And I just, that's not gonna fly here. And I think it's time that we put a channel together that is more positive than negative. And part of the reason why I believe this is the time, and part of the reason why I know I can be positive. Well, I know I can be positive because that's just who I am. I'm just a positive person. Half glass full type of guy, I guess you could say. But mainly, I believe in being positive because I do believe the more positive you are, positive things will happen. And I do believe that that is the reason why, it's one of the reasons why they've got the right people in charge to make this happen. If I didn't think this was the right time to get this channel going and to get you guys the type of content that you really want to see, for educational reasons, for entertainment reasons, for loyalty reasons as fans, and just for overall good content. Hey, I want to know what's going on with the team. I want to be a part of fellow Jet fans and so forth. Well, that's what I want to build here. And because I've got really good connections, I'm still working as executive producer and senior analyst at the R-Lads Football Network. And that's one of the places you might know me from. The R-Lads Draft Guide comes out in about a month, and I write for anywhere from 6 to 12 teams for the past 15 years or so in the Draft Guide. And the one team I always write about are the New York Jets. So anytime that you've ever had an R-Lads Draft Guide, if you never had one, there's a link in the description of this video. So go order it. Go order it now. And if you're watching this after the draft, well, get the review guide, because the review guide is really cool as well. But even if you got it after the draft, you could still get the draft guide because it's still relevant, because it has scouting reports on every key player in the draft. So, yeah, I mean, that's a big part of the contacts and the people that I've had an opportunity to work with. Really great people. And so I think we can really do some fun things here. Look, there were some good channels out there, but there's also channels out there that are just, in my opinion, doing it because, hey, this is the way we have to do it to get clicks. I'm going to rile people up. I'm going to say stupid shit about the Jets. I'm going to try to back it up with stupid shit and go from there. So I'm going to just be opinionated, and that's going to work. And so far it has. There are some popular channels out there, but I think we could have a popular Jets channel that does it the right way. What I remember, as I mentioned before, which is by far the worst season of franchise history, was the 1996 season. That was the 1-15 season. Okay, so that season, that was the Rich Kotite era. That was it. There was nothing worse than that. That was rock bottom for the franchise. No matter what don't let anybody even come close to trying to debate the worst seasons in Jet football and not put the 1-15 99-6 season number one, and not even just do that, because it's that season, and then you could just go ahead and put like 6 or 7 other seasons, and if you want to loop last year into one of those seasons, fine, but it has no comparison to 1996, none. That's why I laugh today about how they rip Aaron Glenn and the franchise, because I know what really bad teams look like. I know teams that don't have talent, what they look like. I know what the staff looks like. I know what really bad management looks like, and it does not compare. But that's why I think it's a perfect time for this channel, because it's a new chapter in the franchise. I'm really stating my reputation as a Jet fan and my knowledge of the game on this channel.
You think you're pretty smart, don't you?
I could have waited, for the Jets to turn it around and then to start the channel. But I don't need to wait, because I know it's coming and I want to be there now. We're on the verge of being a part of, and it always starts at the bottom somewhere. And that's what that was last year. That was the bottom. That was the first step. And Bill Parcells had it. And Aaron Glenn had it last year. So it's time for Glenn Muji, Darren Muji, the rest of the front office, the scouts, to turn this around. And look, I think it's too bad for the fans who either can or don't want to see the positives. I do believe there are thousands of fans like me who see that we're headed in the right direction. I read the comments on a lot of the videos. I know those fans are out there.
You said it.
And I also know that there's a good number of those fans who believe, like I do, that we have the right guys running the franchise now. Now, if some of you pessimistic fans or fans who are just tired of losing, and some of you guys, look, if you're at least willing to hear me out on this channel, if you are pessimistic, if you're negative because you think that the team has made you negative, and that's okay. But if you're just willing to hear me out on this channel, I promise you that you will be informed more so and more willing. And I think you will be more willing to give this regime a fair shot because of it. As long as they deserve it. Once they deserve it. Nobody says they deserved it yet. I'm not saying that. And I don't know what happens when the losing is going on for as long as it has. Like I said, if you're 22, 23 years old, that's all you know. But just stay with us here. And I believe that if you're willing to give this regime a fair shot, it's going to work out for us. And you'll feel better for it too. I'm telling you, you will feel better for it. Because there are going to be guys, there are guys that are running these channels. There are fans out there, media, and all of them that have just trashed this franchise for as long as they have. I'm telling you right now that they're going to try to spin it. Because the reason they're going to try to spin, once we start winning, they're going to try to spin it, is because, well, they can't be wrong. The Jets were terrible. The Jets franchise is terrible. Aaron Glenn's terrible. Woody Johnson's terrible. And then once things start turning around with Aaron Glenn, with Woody Johnson, they'll find a way to spin it. And they'll probably say things like, well, I was just hard on them because I deserved to be hard on them because they were never good. But now I'm giving them credit because now they deserve to get credit. It's not about that. That's not what it's about. Knocking things that they are doing now or have done over the last month or since the season ended with the decision of retaining Aaron Glenn. Everything leading up from then to free agency, because I'll tell you right now, I have not even watched or paid attention much in the last several days to the reaction on some of these channels for free agency. And I did that on purpose because I knew the channel was going to start. And so I figured, you know what, let me maybe react to them in time. Because I have enough of videos that I've already seen and heard, and I'm going to put those out. But let me react to them, and maybe I'll be surprised. Maybe some of these channels, some of the people I'm talking about will actually say some positive things. But for the most part, since I know what they've said prior to free agency, everything is still negative. And that's going to be the difference between believing in them now as opposed to the people who are still trashing them now. Because if you trash them now for bringing back Aaron Glenn, and Aaron Glenn's an idiot and he doesn't know what he's doing, or any other reason, you cannot come back and then say, oh, I had to be rough on them. They deserve to be rough on them. No, you can't, because you were still saying that they shouldn't have done this, that they should have fired that guy, that they're idiots for doing this, and they're idiots on this day, and they're idiots 7 days a week. And as long as you keep calling them out for being idiots and they don't know what they're doing, well, that's how we're going to turn this around and show everybody that, no, you're the idiots.
Your father's an idiot.
Your grandfather was an idiot.
Your boy's an idiot. You're an idiot. This whole weekend's an idiot.
And we're going to go over this. It's not just going to be, me ranting on here and going, oh, you're an idiot. You know why you're an idiot? Because you're an idiot. No, I'm going to have the facts. I'm going to put out facts. I'm going to put out stuff. And I'm going to say, okay, you see, all right, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens next year. Because, hey, you don't like this. This isn't good. You think this is no good. You don't think this is going to help the organization. You still think they're a joke. You still think that they're dysfunctional. Okay. Well, I've got reasons to show you how they're not. I guess we'll find out who's right.
You know I'm fucking right.
Because there isn't going to be anything other than who's right and who's wrong. And hey, you're the ones playing with all house money, basically. I mean, you're the guys that are out there who are all the Jet bashers and supposedly fans. So you guys got everything. You got all the momentum. And you firmly believe that Aaron Glenn doesn't know what he's doing. And you firmly believe that Woody Johnson's a moron. And you firmly believe that that this is not going to work out. And that it's all going to be ripped up again in a year or two. And hopefully it will. The sooner it is, maybe next year they can hire a new coach and go ahead and draft Arch Manning. That's what a good percentage of Jet fans and part of the media who covers this team, that's how they think. Okay, that's fine. You are on that side. I and many of the subscribers to this channel will be on another side. And we will see who will be right and who will be wrong. What was that thing that Glenn said in his press conference last year?
To any players that's here now, put your seatbelts on.
Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. Actually, you know, the other one that I like the most, though?
We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
We're the freaking New York Jets, and we're built for this shit. How do you not get pumped up to hear that stuff? No other head coach, no other new head coach at a press conference would ever have uttered these words. It comes from a man who understands the franchise, understands their fans, and how we are perceived by the media. That is why Aaron Glenn was born to coach this team. He's a freaking Bill Parcells disciple. He's one of us. And this is important. Remember, Glenn went through those Rich Kotite years and came out of it that close to being a champion. That's why he's the perfect man to get us out of this. No one understands better how this franchise dealt with that 1-15 season in New York. No one understands it better. No one understands better how to deal with this because he had his mentor deal with it. And his mentor dealt with it in nearly a perfect way. And his mentor dealt with this similar dysfunction. Actually, it was worse back then when he arrived, Parcells. And he was able to turn this franchise around to the point where we nearly won a Super Bowl. And we all know what happened after the year, after we blew the game against Denver the very next year. That was our year. Elway retired. That we were going to win the Super Bowl. And on typical Jet fan luck, Vinny Testaverde, ACL week 1, it's over. Or Achilles, whatever the hell he had, and it was over. If you think of it, seriously, there isn't one football coach in America today who bleeds green and white like Aaron Glenn does. Not one coach. Not one coach we should be prouder of to lead our team back to respectability. The same way that his mentor did nearly 30 years ago. And don't let the media cloud your judgment either, because they couldn't care less about you or the Jets. I hear all of this chatter about how Aaron Glenn needs to treat the media with respect. Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Really? Really? Treat the media with respect. How did that work out for Saleh? No one kissed the media more than he did.
Give me a kiss.
How do you think the media always knew whenever something was going on with the team? He never had the respect of his coaching hires or his players. I don't care what. That's not true. He was a players coach. So what a players coach is. Did you not just read what Raheem Mostert said? last week, McDaniel, is that being a player's coach, maybe that's good, but there's just limits to it. You're not going to be respected in that locker room. It's like when people talk about fathers out there who act more like best buddies with their sons than being a dad. You got to be a dad. You got to show discipline. You got to teach the kid the right way. And that's what a coach does. You know what the player wants more than anything? To win. Of course, he'd love to have his cake and eat it too. He'd love to have a player's coach and win Super Bowls. Who wouldn't? But those players respect the coach because the coach will teach them how to win. And by winning, that's when players earn more money and they make a name for themselves in the industry. That's what they care about most. Not, oh, I can't wait to go to work. Oh, I love going to work. I love training camp because I have a player's coach. And it's the same thing with the media. Coaches, players, they ratted out Saleh to make themselves look good. And it was a major reason why the Jets were a dysfunctional franchise when Glenn and Muji took it over just a couple years ago. That's why I laugh my ass off about, was it Rich Eisen talks up Saleh? What do you do? Are you clueless? Don't you remember? Yeah, you can debate whether or not he should have been fired when he did. That's not the point. He got more time than most coaches would have had. Woody Johnson let him coach probably 1 year, maybe 2 years longer than he should have, and had had enough. Again, agree or disagree is not the point. But what do you think? You think that the franchise was dysfunctional and Saleh had nothing to do with it? He was there for years. Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, there were things to like about him. And since they were both first-time GM head coaches, I believe they will have more success down the road. Typical coaches and GMs that do not succeed and can come back and succeed a second or a third time. Because they did enough good stuff for me to believe that could happen. Now, I still don't know whether Robert Saleh could be a really good head coach, to be honest with you. But I believe he will be better. Especially, I can already see it now. The first go around, it was all, hey, I'm gonna hire my best friend's little brother to be my OC with no experience, and I'm going to draft a quarterback who's green and probably needed 2 more years in college, run the offense and run the quarterback. And how'd that work out? He had no plan B after the poor quarterback coach got killed before the season began. No plan B. Not in a week, not in 6 months, forever. For as long as he coached that team, he had no plan B. All he was a defensive coordinator who knew his defense, and he threw the offense out to inexperienced people. And I'm not going to go into it, but the fact of the matter is that when I was getting on with the media, is the press conferences were just so pathetic. Now, there might be fans out there that are like, oh, but, I think we should treat the media nice, and, we can't be bullies, or we can't say certain things because, well, then they will turn around. No. No. There is nothing that Aaron Glenn can say or do, or any head coach in this market, that is going to make the media all of a sudden decide, I was going to out them. I was going to write something negative about them, but they're nice. I like the way they treat us in the press conferences and whenever I ask them for a quote or for whatever they're nice people. They're nice. Robert Saleh was a nice guy, so I'm not going to write about that. How did that work out? Not so good. And there might be a fan base out there as well, because again, you probably, especially if to deal with the media, now you've got to be 25, 30 years old to get into that stuff, to understand what it was like to have Bill Parcells as your coach and how he handled the media. Nobody handled the media in New York better than Bill Parcells. Nobody. And Bill Parcells was not nice to the media. So when you think about Aaron Glenn and what he still talks to Parcells. You don't think they talk about this stuff? You don't think that you don't think that before he got the job or even during this, that he hasn't asked him about how to handle the media and, how should I react or, give me some tips and pointers, whatever. This has been discussed a lot because this is a big, big part of being a head coach with the New York Jets in New York. Big part. If you are going to have a relationship of any kind with the New York media, then this is the kind of relationship you need to have, where when they persist and want to keep asking you questions about certain things, about certain topics, and you don't want to give them crap, hey, you know what? Say stupid shit. To the negative person that wants to constantly rip the franchise, who won't give Aaron Glenn a shot. Oh, why does he have to act like that? Why does he have to say that stuff? Well, why does that irritate you? Why? Because they talk about it the next day on Boomer and Gio. They talk about how Aaron treats the media the wrong way, and and you don't want your favorite talk show hosts to slam the Jets and slam Aaron Glenn, because that's where it's coming from. You're irritated because they're upset about it and they call Aaron Glenn out about it. And that irritates you. And you think because they think it's wrong, it must be wrong. The media in New York, especially, they are not our friends. And I couldn't care less about how Aaron Glenn treats them. So just think about it. If Bill Parcells thought what Aaron Glenn was doing was wrong, that you're going in the wrong direction, don't keep saying that. And look, I'm not going to stick up for Aaron in a way to make it sound like he hasn't done things wrong or he hasn't had mistakes with the media, with the team, on the field of play. Of course he's made mistakes. I'm not talking about some of the mistakes he's made. I'm talking about generally speaking. So if he was handling the media wrong, it would be pretty simple for his mentor to have this discussion with him about it. But did Aaron change at all? Now, we'll find out whether or not he changes this season. Once he starts coming out there in training camp on a daily basis and he has to handle the media, we'll find out how much he changes. I don't expect it to be much. Maybe there'll be a few things here and there he'll change. Like I said, he wasn't perfect. Nobody is. And remember, the same Bill Parcells, you know what his first season was like? 3-12-1. That was his first season. How do you think Giant fans were reacting that offseason? You don't think Giant fans were asking for Bill Parcells and his head after that first season? And how did it go after that? 9-7 playoff, 10-6 playoff, Super Bowl win, year 4. So, hey, if we can follow that, I'd be pretty happy. I don't think we'll follow. I'd say year 5. I got to give it another year because when Parcells came into New York, he already had George Young there for several years. So he had a little bit more stability in the front office. Muji is a first timer, just like Aaron. So both of them are learning on the job. So I'll give them an extra year. So I say 5 years. Year 5, that's when the Jets win a Super Bowl. All right. That'll wrap it up. So again, if you're looking for a channel covering the Jets from someone who has 50 years of experience as a fan, 30 years of experience as part of the media, then this channel is for you. I'm going to be on top of all the BS surrounding the franchise, break down what is real, what's nonsense. I'm going to give you expert opinion from future guests, scouting the players and the staff. When the season begins, we'll break down each game, top analysis, data to back it up. I will be producing weekly live shows as well as pre-produced videos just like this one. Again, I'm going to spit out shorts. I'm going to spit out 5 to 10 minuters. I'm going to do that anytime I hear something that is just outrageous, that is getting traction. I'm going to nip it in the bud as soon as possible. So I'm up for the challenge. It's going to be a lot of work. That's why I had to get ready for this. I welcome your insight. I really do. Your participation on the message board, either live or later on the comment section. Let me know if there's something I can do to make the channel better, more accessible. And let's plant a big fucking stick into the ground, Seminole style, and get this rebuild started. Because like our man, our head coach, Aaron Glenn said, we're the freaking New York Jets, and we're built for this shit.